need to do that job effectively?
Look, it goes beyond the opposition. It's all about our role as public representatives. As you are aware, I mean, the budget vote that you are referring to is the one that confirms what is allocated, mainly by the executive, to us as parliament. And to us as MK Party, that's an anomaly. We are a different stream of government. As public representatives or as parliament, we should be, according to the law, making a determination of appropriations in as far as budget allocations are concerned. And what is happening in this country is an anomaly because now we are expected to go to the executive and to ask for allocation from the executive. It's more like we are biting the hands that must feed us. And in our take as MK Party, this is something that we need to correct. And hence, as a party, we have made a very succinct submission on the need for the autonomy of parliament. And we are looking at the three streams of parliament here, administration, as well as financial autonomy. Because what is the meaning of public representatives or parliament if parliament can't hold the executive accountable? In fact, when you say it's the same executive that must determine what goes to parliament, then you are undermining the law. The money bills are very clear. We are empowered as public representatives to determine the appropriations of the fiscus. But unfortunately, what is happening here at home, because of this Westminster parliamentary system that we are using, but also because of biasness to political, leadership or political organization by public representatives, we find ourselves in a situation where, as MPs, we can hold executive robustly as we want. So in the main, we are here just for compliance. And that's what we want to change as MK Party. And hence we are calling for an independent role a parliament should play. And we have submitted our proposal on independent parliamentary roadmap. But we didn't end there because we think that the budgetary process of parliament as we speak, they are not transparent enough. And we have called for the establishment of a multi-party parliamentary budget forum, where all the parties in parliament will have a say. That's why I'm saying to you, it's not about us alone as MK Party, but it's about us as public representatives participating in these important institutes of our so-called democracy.
That's to follow up on that submission, Mr. Van Rooyen, especially in regards to the financial autonomy that you spoke about. What proposal have you made to the committee during the engagements before we got to today?
Look, we have submitted our proposal and it has been adhered to. If you look into the report that will be debated today, there is a resolution by the committee that we must expedite before the next financial year. We must expedite the establishment of a multi-party parliamentary budget forum. That's the first thing. And the second thing, we have emphasized on the need to be specific on allocations to committees for oversight roles. And as you know, even last financial year, the parliament came out clear to allocate, I think it was 3 million for each committee of both NCOP and the National Assembly. And this year, we have realized an increase to the national allocation to the NCOP committees. That was our call. But what we are saying, we said, let there be transparency because the allocation of the last financial year was not, the rationale was not convincing because it was a one-size-fits-all. And as parliamentarians, we know that our committees' workload differs from one committee to the other. So one of the things that we think the funding of committees must look into, that model must address issues of the workload, but also it must be a transparent model where we can all see that the money that has been allocated for can be properly accounted for and is fit for purpose.
And on the same topic, Mr. Van Rooyen, for many South Africans, right, Parliament's budget sounds like an inside game, like as you had said. Could you explain then in simple terms how Parliament fund itself affect ordinary citizens and why it matters that the official opposition is raising these concerns?
We are here because of the people. We are not here representing our jackets. So obviously it's us who must be the voice of reason. It's us who must champion the call by our people. You know, we are very disturbed as MK party that our country is on the brink of lawlessness. And lawlessness, I mean, means a serious indictment to us as public representatives because it's us who makes this law. It's us who must hold the executive accountable. As you know, as we are speaking here, I mean, we got clear immigration, what you call laws, which are not ignored by the executive. The implementation thereof is close to zero. As a result, our people are frustrated and hopeless. Now they are taking the law into their hands and they are being, I mean, insulted from, from all angles by some of the politicians. And I don't think that's fair. But the reality of the matter is that what is happening on the street now around issues of problems of immigration, it's happening as a result of our failure as government to implement our own laws. So who we are as MPs in this process, we are the ones who are supposed to be holding this executive accountable in terms of them implementing our laws. They are not implementing our laws, but now because of the reasons that I've cited earlier, the lack of independency that is prevalent in this institution, our reliance on the executive to manage our affairs as parliament has compromised our robustness in terms of holding them accountable in as far as implementing our laws is concerned, you know. So that process is compromised extremely because of that lack of autonomy that this parliament is subjected to.
Now, talking about fairness and unfairness, Parliament's budget is approved by all political parties. So is there an inherent tension in the process? And how do other democracies handle parliamentary funding differently to ensure that there's fairness to it?
Look, I think one of the institutions of parliament, I think is Parliament Monitoring Group.
Yes.
They've made a recent study comparing us with countries like Malaysia, if I'm not mistaken, Sri Lanka. But there is a plethora of literature around the essence of parliament autonomy, you know. So the reality of the matter is that our model is a working model, but because of this lack of robustness from our side as MPs, because of reasons that I've cited, political allegiance, and of course, resource allocation, which is mainly determined by the executive, we find ourselves compromised because we are here more like we are here to tick the boxes. We are here for a complex compliance exercise. And that's why as the MK party, we are calling for an overhaul of this Westminster system of doing things. And we want things that will empower Parliament as an independent stream or independent branch of government, which is empowered by the law to hold the executive accountable.
Talking about that, I know your party has suggested some changes to the funding model. You've just mentioned now about the proposal for the working model that you have suggested. Now, could you share one or two practical ideas that would strengthen Parliament's independence without creating unnecessary bureaucracy?
Look, if we have, it's the same model that I've cited earlier. If we have our own multi-party parliamentary budget forum, firstly, we will be empowered to determine the appropriate allocation for this parliament. Because remember, we have our strategic plan for the seventh parliament. And so far, we are going into the second annual performance plan. Our plans are clear, and all parties have made submissions to that strategic plan. And the real of the matter is that that's a plan that will ensure that this parliament, if it's implemented as envisaged by all parties, that will ensure that this parliament becomes an independent institution that will hold the executive accountable. And that's what we are striving for. Because if we will continue to be beggars, beggars also from, National Treasury is the champion of all these particular neoliberal approach. If we are going to go, bowl in hands to the National Treasury and expect that the institution will be robust, then definitely I think that strategic plan is not going to be realized. And our call as MK party is that, more especially for those parties who are holding many MPs in this parliament, the ANC, and in fact, the ANC and its strong, what we call so-called GNU partner DA. The time has arrived for us not to subject ourselves to what we call the executive capture of parliament. I mean, we have seen how they failed when they wanted to introduce a value-added tax. And now, truly speaking, we should be expecting more from MPs. We need to dissociate ourselves from this thing of relying on the executive, to execute or to determine our progress, but also to execute our mandate.
Well, viewers, to those who have just joined us, you are watching Parliament TV. It is a build-up show to the budget vote 2 Parliament, scheduled for this afternoon at 2 o'clock. And of course, we are talking to Mr. Van Rooyen, a member of the MK party. Mr. Van Rooyen, to continue with our conversation, if you could teach every South African one thing about the official opposition's role in budget processes, what would that be? And what do you wish more citizens understood before tomorrow's headlines?
Well, citizens must understand firstly that this budget is not just a compliance process. It's a budget about them. Because if we don't have a strong parliament, then their aspirations, what they've sent us here to do, won't be realized. So it's important that they must take keen interest on these budget processes. And one of the things that we are also, as part of our mandate, because we have realized that public participation in the parliament process, more especially legislation making processes, is somehow reserved to the elite and the lucky few who are sponsored by the elite, those who want to shape the policy trajectory, development policy trajectory of our country. Most of our people, they are disadvantaged. You know, we are somehow appreciating the fact that if you look into the provision that has been made in this vote around issues of taking parliament to the people, as an example, and local government week, has significantly improved. I mean, we have noted with interest as MK Party that local government week allocation has substantially been increased by more than 400%. And taking parliament to the people has increased by 67%. But now, as MK Party, as the official opposition party, we are going to sharpen our eye scrutiny on these programs, because this is happening on the year of local government elections. So we hope that, more especially the ANC and the DA, because the GNU, so-called GNU partners, are not going to take advantage of these increases and use these increases, obviously, for their local government election campaign or for their expeditious political agendas, you know. So we'll be watching them with keen interest, because we'll have to make sure that each and every cent that is allocated is utilized for its purpose. You know, there should be value for money. You know, so definitely our people should take advantage of these processes. I think there is also an expansion in programs that will make sure that various stakeholders are allowed now to come and make submissions in this parliament during policy development processes. So definitely our people must take keen interest on this process. These processes are for them. They are not only for us as public representatives. We are here for them. So they must take full advantage of these processes.
Claire, I'd like to thank you very much for taking time off your busy schedule to be with us here at Parliament TV today.
We are grateful as MK Party for the invitation.
Wow, that was Mr. Van Rooyen, Member of Parliament representing the MK Party. Please stay tuned.
In terms of the Constitution, government is accountable to Parliament. Parliament, as the representative of the people, monitors and seeks to influence government policy and action through the budget. The budget is the instrument for translating policies and plans into public goods and services. Any policy or plan without a budget attached to it is unlikely to be successfully implemented. Economic success depends on the ability of government to employ limited resources with maximum effect. The role of Parliament in this regard cannot be overstated. Parliament's duty is to detect and prevent abuse, prevent illegal and unconstitutional budgetary conduct on the part of the government, make government budgetary operations more transparent, and hold the government answerable on how taxpayers' money is spent. Parliament exercises its oversight through various portfolio committees that assess the budget and other plans, as well as the performance of each department, including their financial performance, and hold them accountable. The budget process is crucial to good governance because it ensures that government expenditure remains aligned to South Africa's policy goals and objectives. What is also of great importance is that ongoing monitoring and tracking of the executive by Parliament allows for intervention in the event of wrongful expenditure and failures in service delivery. The process holds government departments accountable for their expenditure and gives Parliament and the citizens it represents an opportunity to make their own demands and interventions.
On Thursday, the 28th of May 2026, the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Mr. Philwem Tweni Tsipani, and the Speaker of the National Assembly, Ms. Choko Didiza, will table Parliament's budget vote in the National Council of Provinces and the National Assembly, respectively. Parliament's budget vote seeks to outline the funding of the oversight, lawmaking, public participation, international relations, and intergovernmental cooperation programs, and provide the account of the previous spending of the allocated budget. Follow the proceedings on Parliament's various platforms using the handle @Parliament of RSA. Your Parliament, your voice, your future.
How much money has been spent on the rebuild of Parliament to date? And how much more is still to be spent or projected to be spent? And when exactly are we going to have Parliament project completed and handed over so that we can start doing the work in Parliament and avoid or limit these virtual meetings?
TV's budget vote build up right here on the precinct in Cape Town. Now, the EFF sits on the Joint Standing Committee on the Financial Management of Parliament, giving them a front row seat to how this budget is shaped. Now, to help us understand the EFF stance, I'm joined by Ms. Umpile Mautwe. Honorable Mautwe, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Tsepo, for having us.
Of course, come 2 o'clock, the EFF will support or oppose the budget vote too, right? What is the most single reason for that position, whether it is for or against?
The EFF is going to oppose. We've already ventilated our frustrations in the committee, and the report was actually tabled and adopted yesterday in the meeting. And what is interesting, Tsepo, is that, good afternoon to the viewers. What is interesting is that everybody came to a shock when we said, but you can't go to Parliament without an adopted report. Became a bit of a debate, some members throwing some insults to us, but we're very patient with members. The truth is that you can't go and present a resolution of a committee that doesn't exist. And that's why we had an urgent meeting yesterday to deal with the report. We're opposing it, Tsepo, for various reasons. One of them, at the center of it actually, is the appointment of the Secretary to Parliament and the subsequent salary increases that we've seen mushrooming from 2.6 as per the advert to now 5 million, which is not explained. How did it get about? I'm sure you've seen various correspondences between us and Parliament, including the Auditor General of South Africa, seeking clarity on how the AGSA could have said that there is no irregularity found in the audited financial statements, or when she was auditing, her team was auditing. The other issue is we brought this to Parliament when we came here in 2014, the issue of the relocation of Parliament to Pretoria. And over the years, it has not moved. And it was dealt with even at this committee, even in the previous administration. But we're not going anywhere. I remember at the beginning of this administration, the 7th administration, we brought it. And the speaker agreed with us that we need to get to a conclusion to it. You remember that at some point, Parliament even undertook a study to see if the relocation can actually happen. And that report is there, it's just gathering dust. So it's not moving, it's not going away. We feel that Tshwane is central, it's accessible, and that's where we should be. But also it will cut a lot of costs for the, the offices are in Pretoria of all the ministries, and yet legislature is here. So why are we not combining administration with the legislature so that our ministers don't have to travel up and down with their staff and carrying a lot of costs that could have been sent for service delivery issues. So there's no point in having two houses, one house in Cape Town and one house in Pretoria. And every time there's a question and answer session, I mean, you should see the ministers yourself. They'll fly down at 12 to be here at 2 and then fly back at 5 with a whole contingent. So we're saying it's unnecessary. The economy is not growing. So those are some of the cost-cutting mechanisms that can be put in place. But also politically, it is wrong that after so many years of democracy, we still have Cape Town as the legislature, housing the legislature of this country. Let's have the administration and legislature both in Pretoria so that our people can get access to this Parliament. I mean, we were shocked in this very committee to learn that the taking Parliament to the people that took place in Northwest costed us 9 million rands. So, I mean, what is that? It's uncalled for, and it's unacceptable. We're not going to scrutinize those monies that were spent. How come taking Parliament to the people is so much expensive? But if Parliament was in Pretoria, it's accessible. You can go anywhere. You can go to Limpopo, Northwest, Free State, Mpumalanga, KZN. It's central to everybody. So we would cut costs of this high costs that the Parliament is incurring in just taking Parliament, which is supposed to be the Parliament of the people, by the way, taking it to the people. The other issue is the rebuilding of Parliament, the project. Sabo, this Parliament burned down in 2022.
Sure.
When we're celebrating the year 2022, the news broke. It's now 2026. And so at some point, we were told the whole project will cost about 2.2 billion.
Sure.
We're now sitting at over 3 billion, and the costs are still going up. But what exactly has been done to account for the costs that have been incurred? West now, DBSA being the program manager for this project. So how come that this project is escalating so much? So we will have to interrogate such things. We're hearing reports that money has been siphoned to offshore accounts. We're hoping it's not true. We've got piles and piles of documents that are being given to us. We're interrogating them. Some of them we've already given them to the forensic investigators to check what's happening, because we're preparing to take this matter to court. There's no way we're going to sit with this. If we want to fight corruption, we can't see other people being corrupt. And when corruption is happening right at the center of politicians, and then we keep quiet. We're here as members of Parliament to hold each other accountable, and it starts with us. We're not going to allow the money of the people to be looted in our watch, because our kids are going to ask us, Mama, where were you when this thing was happening? So we can't be saying we were members of Parliament, we heard about this, and we put a blind eye to it. We're going to really scrutinize it. We're going to ruffle feathers of the most powerful, but we're not scared. We're here for that.
Now,
we
of
will
course,
execute that.
Of course, our Honorable Maude, talking about accountability, the budget ensures that Parliament is able, right, to execute its mandate of holding the executive to account. Now, you sit on the joint committee on, yes, joint standing committee on financial management of Parliament. In your assessment, are oversight committees, right, such as, for example, health, police, finance as well, are they getting enough funding to do thorough evidence research-based work, you know, to ensure that they execute their mandate properly?
They don't.
Mm.
It starts even with here in Parliament.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the private member bills that we submit to Parliament, they take forever.
Mm.
And we'll be told that, no, we don't have resources, we don't have personnel, we don't have the staff to assist with such. But what is shocking is that when the same bill or a different bill is being tabled by a member of the cabinet, it gets fast-tracked very quickly. So then you get to ask yourself, is it a resource issue or it's a political willingness issue? Are we dealing with the issue or we're tackling the man instead of the ball? So, and if Parliament comes and says we don't have people, suddenly when there's a different bill tabled by a different cabinet member, then it gets fast-tracked. So it's those issues. But I agree that the money is not enough so far. But with the little that we have, we can do a lot. I mean, you see that a lot of money is being chowed through corruption. It is corruption that is eating our budget.
Yeah.
And we can't then blame the budget for not doing the work. Because if that pen is costing you 5 rand, and then Parliament is procuring it for 50 rand, you could have procured 10 pence instead of just 1. So we need to look deeper into that. The law enforcement agencies must really get onto this and curb this corruption that is taking our future as a country. Because once there's much corruption, everything is going to be expensive. We get shocked that the inflation rate is high, the price of bread gets high, but it starts with corruption. Because once these prices escalate, everything else follows. So we as members of Parliament, we are supposed to guard the purse of the public and make sure that this money is being spent and spent properly.
Yes.
And we don't see this, and it cuts across. I mean, if you look at municipalities, the report, the audited financial statements, you'll see that a lot of municipalities have got so much irregularities, so much unauthorized expenditure, and so forth and so forth. So it cuts across. And we're saying, what kind of society do we live in?
Yes.
What kind of society are we having as this country, such that corruption is from the top to the bottom? So we have to set an example as the National House of Legislature to say it can't happen. And it starts here, that we clean ourselves, we put our house together, and then we go fight outside, that everybody can be like us. But if we have around corrupt politicians and officials and employees, everybody will think it's the norm.
Of course.
That, I mean, you're living Tsepo, so Umpile can do it also. And it's a culture that is going to eat our cheese.
That is true.
And we cannot accept that.
Now, Honorable Maude, of course, you mentioned the importance of public participation, right? And I mean, the work that you do here as a member of Parliament is for the people, hence Parliament for the people, by the people, right? Now, with that, of course, many South Africans still feel that Parliament is a bit distant from the realities, their lived realities within their communities. How well is this budget funding public hearings, community outreach programs, and accessible language services? What's the perspective of the EFF when it comes to that?
It's not enough. We even debated that in the finance portfolio, that we use a scientific and complicated language that ordinary citizens don't get to understand what we're dealing with. We make it seem so complex. It's basic issues of saying, we're giving you a project, we are going to build a dam, and this dam is going to give so many villages water.
Yeah.
We make it sound so complex, as if it's out of this world. And that's why people lose interest. I mean, the survey was done that said that, if I'm correct, 2 out of 10 people takes Parliament serious.
Yeah.
So you can imagine if 80% of the population doesn't take Parliament serious, it's because of our conduct as public reps. It's because of our the reports that comes from us,
Yes.
that people feel that, look, you're not taking us serious. We toy and we don't even see the leaders coming to the ground to listen to our issues. We only see them during elections. We're now in the election year. All of us were on the ground campaigning and wanting to retain our seats and grow our seats. But where were you with the whole time? We're going to see now, you see the service delivery issues that we're having. We're going to see the looting now of the municipalities.
Yes.
People trying to clinch onto these offices forever by even going beyond the prescripts of accounting
Yes.
standards, just spending money just to please our people or to give our people false impression that service delivery will now improve. Then after elections, we're back to square one. I mean, we've been in this game for a very long time, and our people are really not fools. They can see politicians for who they are. Unfortunately, some of us have not held offices
Yes.
in governance.
Yeah.
And that's why we as the EFF, we wish that our people can really not blame us, as all of us as politicians, because we're not the same. We've not held governance offices. And therefore, it can't be that it's one blanket that we all get clouded with to say we're corrupt, we're all the same, and whatnot. And maybe they should change their vote and vote EFF.
And of course, then just finally, Honorable Mautu, like you said, with that statistic that only 2 out of 10 people take Parliament seriously, right? What is your message to the public in terms of taking Parliament seriously, in terms of participating, most importantly, in the decisions that are made and the processes that Parliament has? Why is it important for them to be active within politics?
We need responsible citizens, and it starts with them. Our people must know and understand what they're voting for. Our people must know that the X they put on the ballot papers decides their future.
Yeah.
And previously, during the days of apartheid, we never had this opportunity. At least those who came before us, they fought for one man, one vote. And we must not take it for granted.
Yeah.
It is not yet Uhuru. We agree. Things are not the same way we expected to or we were promised, but it's not the end of the day. Because if we don't, we're going to go back, we're going to regress and go back to modern apartheid.
Yes.
I mean, suppose we sit in the Portfolio Committee of Finance, where DA will come and say, do not fund SMMEs, only fund big businesses. So, and they are very proud about it because they are serving that constituency. And they say, don't fund because the SMMEs are corrupt. But who's SMMEs? It's black people in the main. There's no black person who's in the big businesses. And so in essence, they're saying black people are corrupt in a way. In a way, they are saying, do not give these people funding because they are going to develop and they're going to transform this economy. So they are very happy with the status quo. And it can't be correct that in a democratic country, you get segregation like that. And those are apartheid tactics that modern day democracy is now seeing and enjoying.
Yes.
So we are saying to our people, continue to vote because staying at home and not voting is not the solution.
Yeah.
People died for this democracy and it must not be taken for granted. If you are not happy with the current party you are voting for, change your vote.
Yes.
Give other people a chance. But let's all go out in our numbers because others, they go out in their numbers. I mean, if you look at, and I'm not racist or anything, but it's just the truth. Go and see the queues at Waterkloof of those white VDs. They come even with people on wheelchairs. But our people, they don't go to vote. But also, I think the president needs to declare the voting day, no trade day, a free trade day.
Okay.
You know why I'm saying that? It's because if we don't, it's been treated as if it's a public holiday. With a public holiday, you get either 1.5 of your salary or double your salary. Our people are low earners generally. They work at ShopRite, they are on tills, they are casual workers. So the opportunity, every single opportunity they can get to increase the salaries, they will do it. So if you don't declare the voting day as a free trade day, our people will choose to go to work. When they come back from work, it's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, they're tired. They need to go bath kids and prepare for the day tomorrow. They will not go
They
out
won't go to vote, yes.
Who are the people that goes out to vote? Are those ones with the means of production. After voting, they go have breakfast and they go play golf. We don't have that luxury. So the president must declare the voting day a free trade day so that our people can go out in their numbers and vote.
Thank you so much for making the time. So first time that we
And
got the
vote for the EFF.
the first time we have you here, in fact, and hopefully we will have you more on
Thank you so
Parliament
much.
TV.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you.
you. And of course, that was Ms. Umpile Maute of the EFF, and she was sharing her party's perspective on Budget Vote 2. Now, we'll be watching closely when the Speaker and the Chairperson table the budget at 2 p.m. today. Now, for continuous updates on the debate and final voting outcomes, be sure to follow Parliament's official social media accounts using the handle @Parliament of RSA. You can also join the conversation using hashtags for today's sitting. Now, we'll be joined next by the representatives from our Parliamentary Budget Office. Here is a short introduction to the Budget Office.
On Thursday, the 28th of May 2026, the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Mr. Philwem Tsweni, and the Speaker of the National Assembly, Ms. Toko Didiza, will table Parliament's budget vote in the National Council of Provinces and the National Assembly, respectively. Parliament's budget vote seeks to outline the funding of the oversight, lawmaking, public participation, international relations, and intergovernmental cooperation programs, and provide the account of the previous spending of the allocated budget. Follow the proceedings on Parliament's various platforms using the handle @Parliament of RSA. Your Parliament, your voice, your future.
For the year under review, honorable members, we had a budget of 5.87 billion that was appropriated in July by the Executive Authority. And under that budget, we then had an additional amount of 430 million rand that was allocated in terms of the medium-term policy statement to compensate for certain aspects of the operations of the rebuilding program, taking the amount to 5.5 billion. And as at January, we also received an advance payment in terms of the medium-term policy statement, where the Minister of Finance indicated that it's going to further allocate to Parliament an additional 2 billion rand to be able to front load the priority for finishing the building of reconstruction of Parliament, and we received 2.81 billion rand. That then took our budget to 7.5 billion rand. Next slide. So as we reflect during this quarter under review, these are areas of the appropriation under lawmaking, administration, and associated services, as well as direct charges. Direct charges being the payments of those funds for members, either remuneration or medical, as well as areas of associated in terms of the third parties that we pay money for. The rebuild appropriation also indicating that for this quarter, January to March, we had 2.162 billion rand. Next slide. This is the allocation per each of those areas in the institution in terms of how much amount we allocated for compensation of members, goods and services, and so on. This is just an outline of the classification. Next slide. The actuals under financial performance per each of the programs that we have indicated: administration, legislation, as well as associated services. During the quarter under review, those performances as outlined under percentages, we are indicating that at the level of admin, 7% and 75% performance, and then associated percentage will be 103% for the associated services. That takes place that it will exceed possible 100% in some instances if there's exits during the year under gratuities and so on for members. But it is recompensated back in terms of the audited outcomes of our finances in July to make sure that the National Revenue Fund does compensate Parliament in those areas. At the level of the rebuild, 45% of the performance for that quarter. And we also had to compensate for the dome contribution that we had to be able to fix the interim structure for Parliament. At the level of overall annual, that's the statement that we have under performance, 80% admin, 80% under legislation and 98% under associated services. That's the performance overall in terms of how we have spent the various votes of parliament to discharge the support and enablement of performance.
And you're still tuned into Parliament TV, live from Cape Town. Now, the budget vote process seeks to ensure that resources are allocated appropriately to fund the implementation of Parliament's programme of action. While budgets are implemented by the executive of government, Parliament plays an oversight role. Parliament, however, has its own strategic priorities every financial year. The Secretary to Parliament, Mr. Xolile George, joins me now to talk about these priorities. Mr. George, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Tsepo, and good afternoon to all of the Committee of Parliament.
STP, of course, each financial year, Parliament outlines its specific priorities. What were some of the key strategies for the past year?
Well, Tsepo, the priorities of Parliament are informed by the 5-year strategic plan of Parliament. So every term of Parliament sets out the priorities that it would like to pursue. But what is consistent in all those priorities is that it is framed around the core mandates of Parliament, and in the main being lawmaking, performance of oversight over the executive, as well as promotion of public participation. So even for the 7th Parliament in 2024, we started a process of strategy development, and that culminated into both houses setting up priorities. And once they were tabled and approved by the House, then the priorities that we set up for the last financial year were based on those. And they speak to strengthening oversight in the main. And how do we achieve those outcomes in the next 5 years? So everything we do every quarter is premised on us contributing annually to progressive realization of that. How to improve scrutiny of oversight, how to make sure that we don't only end with sittings that says ministers have responded, oral questions, but how do we relate that to translatable impact to the people on the ground? The person would have asked a question as a member, what is happening in Northwest in respect to bottlenecks on water delivery? So when a response says, honorable members, my department has now fixed the water, there's now reliable supply, or there's new installation. So the impact of Parliament putting to scrutiny that results into a member knowing that I can't come to the House and make a false reply that says water is running. When members then go into oversight on the ground, they will find out there's water or not. So invariably it contributes to improvement in the quality of life. When people say, what is the impact of Parliament work? I can see these people are talking every day, but there's nothing on my life. But when there's members saying, so many people, there's backlog of IDs, yet we're going to have elections in November. And then a member asks questions. I'm from Tuba village in northern KwaZulu-Natal, and so many people don't have IDs and they did apply on time. When the Minister of Home Affairs replies there, you must be able to say, we have now dispatched a truck. I'm glad to report that all those communities now have that. So that's the relationship between us saying strengthening scrutiny of oversight around the impact being to improve the responsiveness of the state in the issues raised by citizens. The second priority is about improving the quality of public participation. So again, last year, we had commitments around improving the public participation framework, especially on areas of preparation of people, participation of people, informing them and their contribution. And the loop has got a report back to the people. Did we fix what we said they will do? The third one is around member support, capacity of members. And the fourth one being strengthening international diplomacy of Parliament. So all those four in the last financial year, Tsepo, I'm glad to say that Parliament reported 90% achievement of those priorities in year one of the 7th strategy. So we remain hopeful that as we will be reporting the year end now, we are likely to report possible 100% once we verify all the issues. That's our aim, that we must respond to the priorities in such a manner that it starts building confidence to people that this parliament is making an impact to people and thereby contribute to building public trust. Wow.
Now, of course, STP Parliament has a very transformative agenda, right? What interventions then has Parliament put in place to ensure sustained adherence to its constitutional mandate and administrative functionality?
The transformative agenda is two-dimensional. It's about impacting on society itself. What are the things that Parliament must do that must impact on society in such a way that it transforms the lives of the people? That's the first aspect. To measure that, whether we're achieving it, must be translatable to say, here are the national development plan priorities of the country. So when the president in the opening of Parliament in 2024 says, these are my priorities of my government, I will do the following in the medium-term development plan: reduce poverty, improve job creation opportunities, and improve the economy in such a manner that it is inclusive, and fight and combat corruption, fight crime and combat corruption. So the role of Parliament then is to see the deployment of resources to those at the level of government. Secondly, whether the ministries that support the president in executing that are indeed executing those priorities. Thirdly, looking at the measured social surveys that Stats SA does as a statistics authority of the country. Are we beginning to see a decline in unemployment? Are we beginning to see a decline in poverty levels in the country? Are we beginning to see a decline in crime levels? Are we seeing improvement in law enforcement on issues of criminality and crime in general, combating of corruption and so on, recoveries of SIUs? All of those are sending significant messages whether the strategies are realizable and are impactful to society. So Parliament does that first part of the transformative Parliament. The second part is administrative. The operations of Parliament themselves must respond to members' interest. They must respond to issues that member would like to see happening, so that effectiveness of members enable them to discharge their responsibility of performing oversight. So the duality of that transformative intent is such a way that we must improve our work, improve the systems of Parliament. If we must say there must be digital programs so that we improve how efficiency in the systems take place, the ease of decision-making, where we say there must be a decision tracker in the House, in the NA and NCOP. That's part of improving so that we can track and trace decision. There's no backlog and so on. When there's petitions, people can march to the gates. But we must have a system also that is digital, that allows people to send messages around things that concerns them in such a way that we don't have to wait for a full cycle of dealing with. So it's those impactful shifts that we must have that may appear intangible, but they must assist members. The culture of working by officials, team-based working, as opposed to individual siloed divisions that could undermine the totality of the efforts of the. So the fundamental shift of the human capital strategy, the capacity of people who bring to Parliament, must be such that their capabilities are commensurate to the task at hand. And all of those are measures that we must take to make sure that we continue to improve qualitatively the impact of our work, so that we don't remain only at procedural correctness, that every time Thursday there's a meeting, every Wednesday. No, that's fine. That's the elementary stage. But when a committee of health sits and the Department of Health has come, how do we measure the qualitative impact of that conversation for 3 hours? We must deploy instruments that must help so that we can say effectiveness of Parliament must go beyond output that the meeting took place. It must go to the level of impacts and outcomes. Whether that department, after that session, will go back and fix Baragwana Hospital, if members did raise that. After that, it has gone to Joburg General Hospital, Charlotte Maxeke, and. That's the relationship between performance of oversight versus translatable impact on the ground. And we would like to see the 7th Parliament being shifted into that gear.
In fact, you're talking about the fact that Parliament, the seventh Parliament, should be more assessment based. You must have a performative assessment with regards to the work that has been done in the committees, and it must be felt, it must be translatable with the communities.
Exactly.
Now, of course, in SCP, in this new financial year, you have key strategies as well, right? Do those key strategies then speak to the interventions that you've just mentioned right now?
Those strategies we have this year, it's a consistency of what we had last year. Because those will be multi-year based. You can't achieve outcomes and impact in a year. They are longitudinal in nature, but outputs are yearly. So when we retain the same issue of oversight, it doesn't mean oversight is a yearly performed function and therefore it evaporates.
Yeah.
We've got to track again and implement that plan in multi-year basis. So you will see the same in our strategy. So at others where we said the plan was there, then year one will be execution of that plan. Year two, execution and monitoring. And that allows us to start embedding the culture of monitored performance in the institution in such a way that we can improve the quality of our work.
Yes. And of course, SCP, your role is special in the sense that you sit at the heart of the administration and member support when it comes to the work of Parliament. We're talking both the NA and the NCOP. What administrative shifts and changes have been effected in order to activate appropriate institutional response to support members?
There's multiple interventions we are doing, Tsepo. At the level of budgeting, we're budgeting for impact to look at how do we support committees in such a way that they can prioritize their work. You would have noticed last year and this year, there's increasing allocation directly to committees.
Yes.
To make sure that they have resources to perform their work. And this is in addition to budgets that are there allocated to be utilized across. But that significant shift is about saying, are we beginning to see that the engine rooms of Parliament also have the requisite resources to do their work? Secondly, how do we make sure that the capacity that we have in the NA and the NCOP is viewed and is utilized as such as one committee? That's a culture shift. The intangible, yet it can be so stubborn that people will say, I was appointed here as a committee clerk for correctional services.
Yes.
They asked me to go and help health committee. And therefore I need standalone allowance. What is stand allowance? Stand-in allowance.
Stand-in allowance, yes.
Our policies say that. What it does is to pigeonhole Tsepo, to say she was appointed only for that, and therefore deprive her of growth, of appreciation of institutional realities that in her future growth, one day she may aspire to be a unit manager. That unit manager is all of those.
Yes, yes.
But if she doesn't see that as a capacitation intervention, she sees it only from an angle, what is the benefit from me? And this is not meant to deprive her of that, but it must be a culture shift that allows officials to appreciate exactly that the development support at individual level is to enable that we've got all-rounders institution.
Yes.
But also the institution itself sees itself as one outfit. And to rebuild that culture after it has existed in a monetized way for a long time, it's not a one go. That's why we have got people driving cultural change in Parliament to support the shift of the 7 strategy Parliament priorities in such a mean that it can bring a battalion of employees of Parliament that will be a force that must be available at any given time. When there is no committee secretary for that, that person must be moved to another.
Yes.
Like you have in corporate companies. A board is helped probably by 4 or 5 committees, subcommittees of the board. A secretary of the board, common secretary, is marshalling a group of secretaries that at any given time, when the finance and audit committee is sitting, that person can do that. At 2 o'clock, it is the social services committee. At 3 o'clock, it's a programs committee. At 6 o'clock, it's a strategy committee. That same person does all of that. But for us, we individualize and sectorize the capacity of Parliament. And as a result, it becomes rigid when you say do the other work. So part of that shift is for us to improve that from a systems point of view. Again, the digital program of Parliament to improve such that committee rooms are all enabled to be hybrid in orientation so that when members are not here, they can still work and connect between physical and presence. For instance, if you look at the Good Hope Chamber now, its capacity is 130 seats. You can't have 400 members of NA sitting there. So when you have sittings like that, those becomes sittings that are hybrid in nature. How do we achieve that in all our committees? So the systemic improvement on the digital support for members to resource them, to support them, goes a long way to improve the quality of offerings we do as administrations.
And just lastly, STP, you know, we can never let you go without asking this. With regards to Parliament's restoring Parliament and the rebuilding of Parliament project, how far are we? And are we still going to see the SONA in 2027 being held in the Assembly?
It remains our firm commitment that we would like to see SONA in February 2027 taking place at the new building. There may be few issues not yet finished, but certainly our aspiration and commitment is to see to it that the joint sitting must take place in a newly built assembly for that event. So work is happening steadily. As you can see, that we are in a noisy construction site every day. But obviously people may not see that, because for the normal eye of a person not in the civil works world is to say, but they are busy still knocking up things. And by the time the framing is there, it's easier to complete all other things. And we remain hopeful that by December, people would start seeing a different look and feel of the outside structure of Parliament, starting to see the dome taking place there with all its pillars. And the Joint Standing Committee is keeping tabs on this issue. Even on the 19th of June, it will be taking an in-loco inspection to see to it that from the last time they were here in October, has there been any move, and what is the quantity of that move? And I would like to keep it for there so that members can express their view once they see whether we're working or not working.
STP, thank you so much for coming here.
Always. Thank you so much, Tsepo.
And of course, that is the Secretary to Parliament, Mr. Xolile George, giving us, of course, an overview of what we can expect with the budget, why the budget is necessary for Parliament, and of course, mentioning that, of course, the core constitutional mandate of Parliament, which is accountability, oversight, and ensuring that they do the work for you, the voter, is done properly. Now, keep on watching Parliament TV as we build up to Budget Vote 2 that is scheduled to start at 2 p.m. at the Dome and, of course, in the NCOP. Stay tuned.
On Thursday, the 28th of May 2026, the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Mr. Philwem Tsweni, and the Speaker of the National Assembly, Ms. Toko Didiza, will table Parliament's budget vote in the National Council of Provinces and the National Assembly, respectively. Parliament's budget vote seeks to outline the funding of the oversight, lawmaking, public participation, international relations, and intergovernmental cooperation programs, and provide the account of the previous spending of the allocated budget. Follow the proceedings on Parliament's various platforms using the handle @Parliament of RSA. Your Parliament, your voice, your future.
In terms of the Constitution, government is accountable to Parliament. Parliament, as the representative of the people, monitors and seeks to influence government policy and action through the budget. The budget is the instrument for translating policies and plans into public goods and services. Any policy or plan without a budget attached to it is unlikely to be successfully implemented. Economic success depends on the ability of government to employ limited resources with maximum effect. The role of Parliament in this regard cannot be overstated. Parliament's duty is to detect and prevent abuse, prevent illegal and unconstitutional budgetary conduct on the part of the government, make government budgetary operations more transparent, and hold the government answerable on how taxpayers' money is spent. Parliament exercises its oversight through various portfolio committees that assess the budget and other plans, as well as the performance of each department, including their financial performance and hold them accountable. The budget process is crucial to good governance because it ensures that government expenditure remains aligned to South Africa's policy goals and objectives. What is also of great importance is that ongoing monitoring and tracking of the executive by Parliament allows for intervention in the event of wrongful expenditure and failures in service delivery. The process holds government departments accountable for their expenditure and gives Parliament and the citizens it represents an opportunity to make their own demands and interventions.
Live broadcast of Budget Vote 2 debate, Parliament of South Africa. So committees are integral part to the work of Parliament, and much of the work of business of Parliament is done by committees. They keep Parliament's work ordered and organized, and is a platform where members of the public can express their opinions directly and try to influence the outcome of the Parliament decisions. In the National Assembly, committees are appointed to shadow the work of the various national government departments. Committees can, however, investigate other matters in the public interest within the scope of their responsibility. I'm now joined by the House Chairperson for Committees in the National Assembly, Mr. Frolik. Thank you very much, Mhlegas, for joining us here at Parliament TV, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
Thank you. Mhlegas, the work of committees are essential, like I've said, to the functioning of Parliament. Are committees of Parliament supported enough?
There will never be enough support for committees because the demands of the work are so great. But at the moment, there is sufficient support, apart from a few vacancies that exist. And it's an area that requires attention because of the time lapse that kicks in when a vacancy is declared and the vacancy that is filled. And this has a proportionate influence and impact on the work of the committee.
Now, Mhlegas, what are some of the biggest challenges in the budget processes?
In the budget process overall of Parliament, of course, is that we need to ensure that the allocation of funds to committees are sufficient for them to execute their mandate in line with the rules of Parliament and also the Constitution. But we must always critically keep in mind the following aspects. That the primary function of a committee, one, is to make the laws. It's a lawmaking. Because they do the work for the National Assembly or the Council of Provinces to consider the output from the committee. Second one is to exercise effective oversight over the executive, as well as other entities that report to it. And then thirdly, a very critical aspect is to hold the executive accountable for their action. And that primarily in simple language means that from the president to the deputy president and ministers must account to committees. There is the committee on the presidency that has really recently been formed. And we expect all committees to exercise that critical function in terms of the Constitution of holding the executive accountable.
Now, as the House Chairperson in the National Assembly responsible for oversight, legislation, and public participation, how do you respond to criticism that parliamentary committees are increasingly delayed or deadlocked on key accountability matters?
I don't know what exactly you're referring to, keeping in mind the new dynamic that we have in the 7th Parliament, in that there is no particular political party that have an absolute majority. And we see it playing out in certain committees. What we do see is that because of a lack of a clear majority, there must be better interface and discussions amongst political parties to achieve the outcome that is not only suitable to a certain political party, but benefits the South African public the best. And there's more interaction that is required at that level, also at the level of the chief whips to give better direction to their political parties in specific committees. Then we will deal with an impression that is created that they remain deadlocked on certain positions. But ultimately, the litmus test is that when you become deadlocked, you must ask yourself, one, what does the rules of Parliament say? But two, what does the Constitution say? And we cannot forever have deadlocks when we have key instruments such as the rules of Parliament and the Constitution that is there to guide us in terms of our overall implementation of the strategic plan of Parliament.
I can affirm, Honorable House Chairperson, that indeed those rules do provide such a guidance. Now, talking about looking at the Parliamentary Budget Office and its independence, is that office currently sufficiently independent, and does it have enough resources to be effective?
The Parliamentary Budget Office is independent. The experience that I have over the years is that we never get involved with the excellent research work that's being done by that office. We don't get involved in it because we want to have an independent outcome from there, from where the political parties can then interpret the different instruments and products that emanate from that office. In terms of the resourcing, is that we have undertaken and benchmarked internationally the PBO. And there is always, as I've said earlier, a request for more support, more allocation of budget, human resources, etc. And at the moment, there are a few key vacancies that needs to be filled, including that of the director of the Parliamentary Budget Office, whose contract has come to an end, but also further down in that ecosystem. But we must interpret the needs vis-a-vis the available resources that are there. You must cut your cloth according to your size. If you continuously want more, we must first do an assessment on the efficacy of what is currently there. And in our interaction with the Parliamentary Budget Office, we make that point to say that we do not have limitless, unending resource allocations. We must understand overall where the country also finds itself in terms of resources, and then we must match that in terms of the allocation to Parliament, the core functions of Parliament, and then the allocation to specific offices.
Hlekazi, before I let you go with a full understanding of the time pressures, now, at a time when the public trust in Parliament remains under pressure, so what steps are being taken within the committee system to improve transparency, ethical accountability, and public participation in oversight processes?
In terms of oversight and holding the executive accountable, we make it very clear. It's non-negotiable for a member of the executive to come and to account to a committee, because the committee is not doing it for themselves, they're doing it on behalf of the public. And the public interest, of course, is important, and we need to ensure that by creating that ecosystem of accountability, that whether it is a minister, a head of an institution, Chapter 9 institution or entities, must feel free that they come and account. It is a constitutional obligation that is there. So we will continuously support committees that insist for accountability by those who are responsible or leading politically those different entities and departments. But what we also need to do is to ensure that in this ecosystem, the atmosphere exists for accountability, and we also hold committees accountable for what they are supposed to do. And if I see that we do not get the required output, then the committee chairperson is held accountable together with the committee so that they can do what they are supposed to do. That is the only way that we can get the responsiveness that is required at different levels, but especially for the public to see that the issues are receiving attention and they do receive the feedback. Even if the feedback is not always positive, the matters must be dealt with in a manner that is consistent with the Constitution and also with the parliamentary rules.
If I had more time, I was going to ask you if you are getting the required input from one of the committees that I serve in, which is the Communication and Digital Technologies Committee. But because of time constraint, I'll let it go now. But next time, I'll definitely be asking you that question.
You see, that question is now unconscious bias because you're talking about your committee only. But I look forward to further engagement.
Hlekazi, thank you very much for taking time off. I know we are pressed for time. You need to be in the House at 2 o'clock. That was the House Chairperson, Mr. Cedric Froelich. He is responsible for oversight, legislation, and public participation in the National Assembly. Please stay tuned to Parliament TV.
Thursday, the 28th of May, 2026, the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Mr. Philwin Tsweni, and the Speaker of the National Assembly, Mr. Toko Didiza, will table Parliament's budget vote in the National Council of Provinces and the National Assembly, respectively. Parliament's budget vote seeks to outline the funding of the oversight, lawmaking, public participation, international relations and intergovernmental cooperation programs, and provide the account of the previous spending of the allocated budget. Follow the proceedings on Parliament's various platforms using the handle @Parliament of RSA. Your Parliament, your voice, your future.
Building our great South African nation together.
The Constitution of the Republic of South Africa provides for a constitutional democracy. It includes the Bill of Rights as a cornerstone of democracy in South Africa that enshrines the rights of all people in our country. The legal framework for institutions supporting democracy. Chapter 9 of the Constitution creates a number of independent state institutions to strengthen constitutional democracy in the Republic, namely the Public Protector, the South African Human Rights Commission, the Commission for the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Cultural, Religious, and Linguistic Communities, the Commission for Gender Equality, the Auditor General, the Independent Electoral Commission. The Constitution provides that these institutions are independent and subject only to the Constitution and the law. In addition, the Constitution also provides for the establishment of a number of other statutory bodies which promote constitutional democracy, including the Financial and Fiscal Commission, the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, the Pan-South African Language Board, and the Public Service Commission. National legislation further provides for the establishment of a National Youth Development Agency aimed at creating and promoting coordination in youth development matters. These institutions are collectively referred to as institutions supporting democracy. The task of these institutions is to promote and protect those rights within the Bill of Rights which fall within their particular area. The independence of institutions supporting democracy. The institutions supporting democracy are independent and subject only to the Constitution and the law. No person or organ of state may interfere with their functioning. The relationship between Parliament and the institutions supporting democracy. These institutions are accountable to the National Assembly. First, they must report on their activities and the performance of their functions to the National Assembly at least once a year. Secondly, they perform a complementary oversight function to that of Parliament, amongst others, through the investigations they conduct and the reports they submit to Parliament. Thirdly, Parliament must assist and protect these institutions through legislative and other measures to ensure their independence, impartiality, dignity, and effectiveness. In so doing, Parliament established the Office on Institutions Supporting Democracy in September 2010, after the adoption of a recommendation by the Ad Hoc Committee on the Review of Chapter 9 and Associated Institutions by the National Assembly. The mandate of the office is to enhance the capacity of the National Assembly to perform its functions of oversight, accountability, and support relevant to institutions supporting democracy, and to coordinate all interaction between the National Assembly and the institutions.
Now, the Parliamentary Budget Office is an independent, non-partisan research institution that provides legislatures with objective analysis on budgets, public finances, and economic policy. Its primary goal is to empower lawmakers to scrutinize government spending, assess fiscal risks, and make informed decisions during the legislative budget process. Now, here to tell us more about this is the Deputy Director of Public Policy at the Parliamentary Budget Office and Acting Dr. Nelia Orlandi, and the economic analyst rather from the PBO, Ms. Kagiso Mamabolo. Doc, Ms. Kagiso, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Of course, we're talking budget. By the way, I'm a lawyer. I know nothing about budgets. So we're going to minimize this conversation for the person who is watching, right? First and foremost, Doc, I'm going to start with you. Please take us through the process by which Parliament oversees, scrutinizes, and approves the annual budget.
Yes, so every year in February, the Minister of Finance table a big bunch of documents, budget documents, and I've actually brought them with.
Yes.
For viewers to actually see, this is the bunch of documents that the Minister present to Parliament. So the first one is the budget review. That's this document. And this includes the fiscal framework. It includes all the tax policies. It includes the economic outlook for
all the things that ordinary tipples running around this won't really understand.
Yes, but I mean, this document includes all those information as well as the fiscal framework, which is important for Parliament to improve before we can approve all the other budget documents. And the next set of documents will be the Division of Revenue Bill. That is also included. So this document actually includes the division of all the revenue between the three spheres of government, which is the national sphere, the provincial, and the local government spheres of government.
Yes.
The next document is actually the Appropriations Bill, which is currently before Parliament, and all the discussions about the appropriations is currently before Parliament.
Yes.
And this small bill is a summary of the estimates of national expenditure.
Oh, okay.
So now you can see the extent and the complexity of all these documents. And that is also the reason why the parliamentary budget actually has been established to assist members to analyze all these documents. But to come back to your question, first, the fiscal framework needs to be approved, and that needs to be approved within 16 days after the tabling of the budget. The next is the pass of the Division of Revenue Bill, and then Parliament continues with the Appropriations Bill. It's been referred to the Standing Committee of Appropriations already, and some of the individual votes are referred to the portfolio committees. And the portfolio committees can make recommendations to the Standing Committee of Appropriations to make recommendations to the Minister of Finance. So, yes, but Parliament can also, the Money Bills Amendment Procedure and Related Management Act actually provides for Parliament to amend the budget. But there's a whole lot of rules that needs to be followed before the budget can be amended.
Now, of course, Ms. Mamabolo, and I'm sure, Doc, you understand as well that South Africans won't really be interested in this, right? People look more at the bread and butter issues, right? And of course, with facing rising living costs, we have unemployment, of course, we have slow economic growth. In your opinion, how are these pressures shaping fiscal policy decisions right at this moment?
I think before we even talk about that, we need to actually contextualize using hard data. What is the cost of living? What is the unemployment? And what are those kind of challenges that are shaping fiscal policy decision? And so the Parliamentary Budget Office relies on reputable institutions such as the Pietermaritzburg Economic Justice Group to actually obtain data from those institutions and other relevant other institutions. And in April, for example, in last month, they found that the household food basket was 5,400 rand. And so now for a worker that's earning at a national minimum wage level, they're earning around 5,200 rand. So if they spend just their income alone on that household food basket, they can't even afford it. And then when you factor in the unemployment rate, which is currently at around 33%, that's 8.1 million people that are unemployed, as well, that's at a narrow definition. At an expanded definition, it's around 44%. And the fact that our economy, at least in 2025, 2025, it grew at 1.1%. That's below the growth rate population. Those factors impact fiscal policy decision, because fiscal policy is essentially a tool where the state looks at where it can collect its revenue and also where it can actually allocate its spending. So one of the areas that it allocates its spending is within social services or social grants. So when you have a population that's increasingly being unemployed, more and more people are increasingly becoming more vulnerable.
Yeah.
So it just depends on what also the central objective of fiscal policy is. So if the central objective of fiscal policy is to, for instance, reduce the budget deficit, then it has to look at how do we actually do that. And you find, or in the situation that we're in, is that it's through reducing real per capita spending. So it's those kind of decisions that it has to toy around. Do we actually prioritize reducing the budget deficit or having a primary budget surplus, or do we prioritize protecting vulnerable people within our population in the midst of all those challenges that we're currently facing?
And of course, talking about the vulnerable population, you have departments. I mean, we've been having budget votes, plenaries for budget votes so far, right? And these are the departments really that make an impact on people within their communities, right? Trying, of course, to eradicate some of the challenges that they face on a daily basis. Now, on your part, Doc, of course, one of the PBO's functions is to review budget documentation, right? When you do that, what exactly does the review process involve, right? And what are you looking for when analyzing the documentation that comes from the executive?
Yes, for us, it is important to make sure that the budgets are credible, firstly, and whether departments spend efficiently and so we make sure that we analyze budgets and we make sure that we analyze policy to make sure that the budgets are aligned to policy, because we want the budgets to basically respond to the needs of citizens. And in terms of the work that our economic section is doing, they're doing socioeconomic analysis. So we really know where the needs are, and we really know where the impact, if the budget is actually making an impact on those documents. But we also make sure that our economic analysis, that our budget is based on the correct assumptions in terms of the macroeconomic assumptions that they use to establish the fiscal framework as well. Lately, we also do a lot of work on conditional grants to make sure that those documents and the structures of those documents are aligned to the policies, and whether the provinces and municipalities actually report on the performance of the conditions of the conditional grants.
Is it okay if one were to assume that you don't just look at South Africa alone, but also at the global trends as well?
In terms of budget expenditure, not really, but in terms of our economic analysis, we definitely do a global assessment as well, and how the global economy actually influenced the South African economy as well.
And Ms. Mawabolo, then in that instance, what impact then does the global economic trends, of course, such as inflation, interest rates, and geopolitical instability have on South Africa's outlook? I mean, for example, how does the current economic climate influence decisions around revenue collection, public expenditure, and debt management?
Yeah, that's a great question. South Africa finds itself within what we call a polycrisis. So what we mean by polycrisis is that there are multiple crises that are happening all at the same time. And the unfortunate thing for our context is that it's against the backdrop of high unemployment, high poverty, as well as inequality. So when you take a geopolitical conflict, for example, like the one that's currently taking place between Iran, conflict or war, I don't know which terms people prefer using, between Iran, Israel, as well as the US. That kind of conflict, we've seen that it's had an impact on the supply chain disruptions. It had an impact on global oil prices, as well as on fertilizer costs. And then within the South African context, we've seen that it's contributed to increasing our inflation with the inflation results that were released, I think it was a week ago, which is the highest inflation we've seen since 2024. And so if monetary policy, for example, if their key objective is lower inflation, a high inflation triggers higher interest rates, and those interest rates unfortunately impact households, especially households that find themselves in debt.
Yes.
It also has an impact, of course, on businesses where, particularly with the supply shocks, if businesses rely on fuel costs, for example,
Yes.
that increases their input costs. So that essentially you find that it narrows down the fiscal space in terms of the revenue collection. Unfortunately, well, in terms of the South African context, let me not say unfortunately, what is driving our economic growth is household consumption. It constitutes around 67 or 68% of our growth. So if you're constraining household consumption by increasing interest rates, that's going to have an effect on our growth. That effect then has an effect on our ability to collect revenue. And so depending also on what the fiscal priorities are, if it is to, again, increase the budget surplus or reduce the budget deficit, then fiscal policymakers will say, okay, what then do we do to reduce spending on social programs? So those are the kind of global effects have on fiscal policy.
And Doc, of course, then as the Deputy Director of Public Policy, those challenges that Ms. Mamabolo has just highlighted, what are some of the recommendations when it comes to policy making has the PBO come up with to sort of balance and ensure that there's some cushion that households can sort of just, just a cushion to ensure that they are able to put food on the table, and that issues such as interest rates do not really have such a huge knock-on effect on their pockets?
Yes, we don't really analyze policy in terms of and provide recommendations on strategic direction.
Okay.
But we do analyze our State of the Nation address. We make sure that the budget responds to the State of the Nation address. We make sure that our individual budgets of departments also respond to the medium-term development plan, because we've analyzed the medium-term development plan, and it definitely responds to most of these things and these socioeconomic issues that we have in the country, security issues that we have in the country, economic slow growth in economy. The plan responds to it. So it's just a matter of making sure that departments implement those plans and that government departments' own annual performance plans are actually aligned and include those outcomes that has been published in or developed for the medium-term development plan. And those are the kind of analysis that we do specifically in terms of alignment. We comment on that, but we also make technical recommendations where departments' performance indicators, for example, are not responding and are not measurable, and departments cannot actually measure their performance on the response to our issues in the country.
Alrighty. Now, Ms. Mamabolo, of course, just briefly, right? From your perspective, how important is independent fiscal analysis in helping Parliament to respond to South Africa's current economic challenges?
I think independent fiscal analysis is important in a sense that it provides Parliament with effective oversight, independent oversight, as well as parliamentary accountability. So it helps to actually with policymakers for them to take a step back and to ask the critical questions is, in the context of high poverty, inequality, and unemployment, is our fiscal policy essentially addressing the scale of the issues that we're currently facing? Are we overlooking possible alternatives, And so those type of questions is what independent fiscal policy essentially provides with policymakers.
Yes. Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
And of course, that it was the Deputy Director of Public Policy at the Parliamentary Budget Office, Dr. Nelia Orlandi, and the Economic Analyst from the Parliamentary Budget Office, Ms. Kagiso Mamabolo. Of course, it is 2:00 as we await both houses to convene their processes when it comes to Budget Vote 2 of Parliament. Let's take you to those chambers.